The Blackwood Ledger. The wheelchair-bound silhouette appeared beyond the library window just as the gun barrel pressed against Arthur's temple. The tapping of a signet ring on glass, rhythmic, patient, alive. His father. The man supposed to be dead for 3 months. 13 hours earlier. The mahogany desk groaned under his shoulder. Arthur's palms pressed hard against the scarred wood, boots scraping and skidding on the grit-covered floorboards. Dust motes swirled in the shaft of golden sunlight, bleeding through the tall study windows. His shirt stuck to his back. Sweat beaded along his hairline. The desk's rear panel struck the baseboard with a sharp thud. Then, a metallic click, hollow, resonant, from somewhere deep within the wood. Arthur froze. His breathing stilled. He tilted his head, listening to the silence that followed. He reached his fingers into the narrow gap behind the center drawers. His index finger caught on something invisible, a seam, barely perceptible. He pulled hard. The hidden panel gave way. Inside, a thick envelope, its paper yellowed to the color of old bone. Red wax seal intact. Beside it, a black leather ledger, its spine cracked and peeling. Gilt lettering caught the light. Private accounts, E. Blackwood. His father's handwriting, his father's secrets. Arthur's thumb cracked the wax seal. The envelope yielded, releasing the smell of old paper and something else. Something acrid like burnt metal. He pulled out a letter. Memorandum of ghost transfer. The header was printed on official letterhead. Below it, signatures. His father's signature, he knew it intimately, had seen it on every document his entire life. And another signature. His brother's name, Julian Blackwood. But the handwriting was wrong. The pressure of the pen was wrong. The proportions were wrong. Forged, his hands began to tremble. The silver Mercedes came in hot, gravel spraying under the tires. Julian stepped out before the engine had finished ticking, checking his gold Rolex with the practiced gesture of a man accustomed to time being an extension of his own importance. Sharp gray suit, pressed white shirt, hair perfect. Arthur stood on the porch, ledger in hand. Julian's eyes widened when he saw it. For a moment, just a fraction of a second, his face went pale. Arthur descended the stairs, one step, then another. His jaw clenched. He shoved the ledger into Julian's chest. Julian stumbled backward, the wind knocked from him. His eyes darted across the cover, reading the gilt letters. His lips moved silently. No words came. "He sold you out," Arthur said. His voice came out gravelly, worn. 20 years ago. Look at the ledger. A man appeared from the side of the house. Overalls, work boots. His name was Vic, though Arthur didn't know that yet. What Arthur saw was the pipe wrench, 18 inches of cold steel, already in motion. Vic swung mid-stride. Arthur's body moved on instinct. He ducked. The wrench screamed through the air above his head and connected with the Mercedes side view mirror. The glass exploded into 1,000 fragments, glittering in the mid-morning sun like scattered diamonds. Arthur drove his shoulder into Vic's stomach. Air erupted from the man's lungs. They both went down hard onto the gravel, rolling, grappling, arms and legs tangled. The wrench skittered across the driveway. Julian didn't move. He stood motionless, clutching the ledger to his chest, watching the fight with an expression that was neither horror nor disgust. He looked almost calculating. Then he turned. He walked toward the house, his footsteps careful and measured. He didn't run. He didn't shout for help. He muttered something, so quietly that Arthur almost didn't hear it. I told him the desk was supposed to be burned. Arthur had Vic pinned, knees pressing the man's arms flat against the gravel. They were both breathing hard, chests heaving. Arthur's knuckles were scraped raw. Blood dripped onto the white stone. He reached into Vic's back pocket. The wallet was leather, well worn. He flipped it open with one hand. The first thing he saw was a badge. Vic Sterling, Security and Recovery. Beneath it, a business card. Silver lettering on black stock. Blackwood and Associates, Legal Counsel. The logo was a stylized B, intertwined with architectural elements, columns, cornerstones, the crest of old money. His father's law firm. Wind whistled through the porch eaves. Thunder rumbled somewhere in the distance. Evening came with low clouds and the smell of rain. The dining hall was enormous, 40 feet long, 20 feet high, a vaulted ceiling with crown molding that had been installed when the house was still new. An oak table dominated the room, polished to such a shine that the crystal chandelier reflected in it like a second sky. Elena entered wearing a black lace shawl. She was their sister, 3 years older than Julian, 4 years older than Arthur. Her face was sharp, aristocratic, beautiful in the way of old money and corrective surgery. She carried a designer clutch the color of blood. She slammed it onto the table next to the ledger. Raindrops on her coat caught the chandelier light. They hung there for a moment before sliding down the fabric to pool on the floor. "Where is Julian?" she demanded. Arthur didn't answer. Instead, he spread 4 letters across the table like a dealer playing cards. Each one bore the family crest. Each one was different. The first letter, E. Blackwood, in their father's handwriting. The second letter, J. Blackwood, in Julian's handwriting. Arthur had seen enough of his brother's writing to know it. The third, a draft, unsigned, the ink smudged with multiple corrections. The fourth, another E. Blackwood. But the signature was shaky, uncertain, nothing like the man Arthur had known. Elena's eyes moved across each one, reading. Her face shifted through a series of expressions, disbelief, anger, something else. Something that looked like recognition. "Where did you find these?" she asked. "In the desk, the one in the study." "That desk has been in the house for 200 years. "Yes." Elena reached for the fourth letter. Her fingers trembled as she held it. "These aren't what you think they are." Thunder rolled across the house. The lights flickered once, held steady. Night fell hard and fast. Rain hammered against the windows. The storm had teeth, wind that clawed at the eaves, lightning that split the sky into jagged pieces. The kitchen was immense, all stainless steel and marble. An island dominated the center, and on it, Arthur had arranged the documents, weighing them down with a crystal paperweight. Julian came in like a man possessed. His eyes were wild. His shirt was unbuttoned halfway down his chest. He had the look of someone who had been drinking, though Arthur smelled no alcohol on him. Julian lunged across the marble island. His fingers clawed for the ledger. Arthur pivoted, but not fast enough. Julian's hand closed around the edge of the book. They pulled. The ledger twisted between them. A tray of wine glasses sat on the counter, 8 of them, stemware so thin it was almost transparent. Julian's elbow caught the edge of the tray. The glasses cascaded to the floor in a symphony of shattering crystal. Red wine splashed across the marble, bleeding into the seams between the stones. One glass cut open Julian's arm. He didn't seem to notice. Arthur grabbed his brother's silk tie and twisted it. He drove Julian's head toward the edge of the counter, not hard enough to kill him, but hard enough. Julian's face impacted the cold marble. For a moment, he was stunned, loose. Then Julian's head came up. His nose was broken. Blood streamed down his face, dripping into his mouth. His eyes were bright with rage. He drove his fist into Arthur's ribs. The pain was immediate and total. Arthur's breath stopped. He felt something shift inside his chest. Not a break, not yet. but something fractured, something wrong. Julian came at him again. Arthur dodged, and Julian's second punch went wide, connecting instead with one of the copper pots hanging from the ceiling. The pot rang like a bell, a deep, resonant note that echoed through the kitchen. They tumbled together. Pots fell, clanging, bouncing off the floor. The metal rang with each impact. Arthur saw his own hands, as if from a distance, bloodied, shaking, gripping his brother's collar. Then Elena was there. She stood in the kitchen doorway, watching them both with an expression of absolute coldness. "Stop," she said. Neither of them stopped. She pulled a locket from her throat. It hung on a delicate gold chain, and she snapped it open with her fingernail. Inside, something glinted, a tiny strip of film, so small it was almost invisible. "Stop or I'll burn everything." This time, they did. Elena pulled the film strip out. She held it up to the overhead light. The film cast a shadow on the white tile, tiny rectangles of text, photographs, signatures. "Do you want to know what this is?" Elena asked. Neither brother answered. "This is the real ledger, not the one father kept, the one mother found." She lowered the film. The candlelight caught her face, and for a moment, she looked years older than she was. Decades older, like a woman who had been carrying a weight so heavy that her body had slowly compressed under the pressure. "Mother didn't get sick, Arthur. She found the ledger. She found the letters. She understood what they meant. When she tried to leave, when she tried to go to the police..." Elena's voice flattened. "Father paid the doctors to lock her away. They told us she had a degenerative disease, neurological deterioration. They said she had 6 months. Do you remember? Do you remember visiting her in that facility?" Arthur remembered. Elena continued. "She was in a hospital bed. She was drugged into unconsciousness. But before that, before Father had her committed, she gave this to me." She held up the film. "She told me to wait, to watch, to understand what kind of man our father really was." The kitchen was silent except for the sound of rain against the windows. "And now?" Arthur asked. "Now we run," Elena said, "or we burn it all." Late night. The power flickered in the house. A moment of darkness, then light again. The library was 2 stories tall, with mahogany shelves reaching to the ceiling. A rolling ladder hung from a brass track. The fireplace was dark and cold. The heavy library doors kicked open. Sterling stood there, the man who had hired Vic, the man whose business card was still in Arthur's pocket. He wore a trench coat that dripped rainwater onto the expensive rug. His hair was slicked back from his forehead. His eyes were the color of used engine oil. He held a silenced pistol. Behind him stood 2 other men, large, professional, the kind of men who had never needed to ask what they were capable of doing. "The ledger," Sterling said. His voice was soft, almost conversational. "We can do this 2 ways. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Arthur and Julian were standing at opposite ends of the library. Elena was nowhere to be seen. Sterling walked deeper into the room. His shoes left wet footprints on the rug. The pistol hung at his side, casual, relaxed. A man holding a gun in his own hand grows comfortable with it. It becomes an extension of his arm, an extension of his intent. "Your father has been watching," Sterling said. "The whole time. He wanted to see what you would do, how far you would go, what you were truly capable of." Arthur's eyes moved to the security cameras mounted in the corners of the room. Red lights, recording, always recording. The first thug moved toward Arthur. The second moved toward Julian. Arthur's mind raced. Options, exits, weapons. He saw a crystal decanter on the side table. Heavy, expensive, probably valuable. He grabbed it without thinking and hurled it across the room. The decanter exploded against the first thug's temple. He dropped. Blood ran down his face. Arthur dived over a sofa just as the silenced pistol made its sound, not the Hollywood peft of movies, but something more organic, almost natural, like a cough. A book on the shelf behind him exploded, pages flying like wounded birds. Another shot, another book shredded. The sofa cushion burst open, releasing a cloud of white stuffing. Julian bolted for the window. The second thug grabbed him by the hair, a fistful of expensive product and desperation. He slammed Julian's head into a glass display case. The glass shattered. Antique vases, collector's items, each one worth thousands of dollars, fell to the floor. They broke, pieces scattering across the marble. Julian's arm was shredded. He screamed, a sound of pure animal pain. Arthur came up from behind the sofa. He threw a bookend at Sterling, but Sterling was already moving. The bookend missed by inches. Sterling stepped closer, moving with the deliberate grace of someone trained in violence. He kicked Arthur in the ribs. The pain was exquisite. It radiated from the impact point, washing through Arthur's entire body like a wave of fire. He curled on the floor, gasping, his body refusing to obey his mind's commands. Sterling pressed the barrel of the gun to Arthur's temple. The metal was hot. It burned against his skin. Sterling smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. It was the smile of a man who understood power, the absolute final power of holding another person's life in his hand. "Your father is upstairs," Sterling said softly. "He's been watching the entire time. Would you like to say hello?" Arthur's vision blurred. The pain in his ribs made every breath an exercise in agony. Sterling stood above him, the gun steady, the smile fixed. Sterling reached up to his ear. There was an earpiece there, so small it was almost invisible. He tapped it twice. "They found it," he said into the device. He wasn't speaking to anyone in the room. "Yes, sir, all of it." He looked at one of the security cameras. The red light blinked steadily. He smiled at the lens, at the camera, not at Arthur. Arthur's eyes moved upward. Above the library, the house had another floor, a private floor, where the master suite was located. There was a balcony there, overlooking the library, a balcony with interior windows. A silhouette appeared. It was shaped like a man, but the man was not standing. The man was sitting. Wheelchair. The backlit silhouette of their father, dead for 3 months, present and watching and alive. The figure raised one hand, a hand with a signet ring. The ring caught the firelight and flashed. Gold, crest, the seal of Blackwood. That hand tapped against the glass. Rhythmic, patient, alive. The tapping continued. Tap, tap, tap. As if their father were knocking on a door, trying to get their attention, trying to call them in from the rain. Pre-dawn. The house was dark except for the emergency lighting that kicked in when the power failed. Rain fell in sheets, attacking the windows like something alive and angry. Arthur crawled. His ribs felt like they might collapse with each breath, but he crawled anyway. Under a renovation tarp, beneath the scaffolding that had been set up 6 months ago for work that was never completed, there was a gas line. Copper pipe. It ran along the basement wall and up into the kitchen. His fingers found the valve. His hand shook. He gripped the pipe wrench, the same one Vic had used that morning, and twisted the valve. It resisted. Corroded. Old. He twisted harder. The valve snapped. The hiss that followed was high-pitched, almost alive, filling the air with a sound like escaping pressure, like a scream made of molecules. Sterling was somewhere in the house. The two thugs were still in the library. One of them, the one Arthur had hit with the decanter, was unconscious. The other was standing over Julian, who was no longer moving. Arthur pulled out his silver lighter, Zippo, given to him by his grandfather. The lighter had been expensive once. It still worked. He flicked it. The flame caught immediately. Arthur tossed the lighter into the kitchen. The gas caught. There was a moment, just a fraction of a second, where nothing happened, where time held its breath. Then the world exploded. The roar came first, a sound so loud it swallowed all other sounds. A wave of heat and force that picked Arthur up and threw him through the front window. The glass shattered, and Arthur shattered with it, suspended for one impossible moment in the air between inside and outside. He landed on the rain-soaked grass. His body rolled. His ribs screamed. He kept rolling, kept moving, because stopping meant being consumed by the fire that was now consuming the house. Behind him, the library windows blew outward in a rain of glass and flame. Orange light reflected off the raindrops, thousands of tiny mirrors holding the image of destruction. The kitchen imploded. The dining hall filled with smoke and fire. Arthur didn't look back. He crawled to his car, a black sedan, nondescript, parked 300 yards away. He reached it and collapsed into the driver's seat. His hands shook too much to grip the steering wheel at first. He sat there, breathing, feeling his ribs expand and contract with waves of pain. In the rearview mirror, the estate burned. He put the car in gear and drove. Morning came gray and cold. The police station parking lot was empty, except for 3 patrol cars and a handful of unmarked vehicles. The officers inside were still dealing with the fire at the Blackwood estate. The explosion had been heard 3 miles away. The house would burn for hours. Arthur sat in his car. The ledger lay on the passenger seat, its black leather still intact, somehow untouched by the fire. He opened it to the last page. There was a handwritten note taped there. His father's handwriting. The same handwriting that had signed all those forged documents. The same handwriting that had authorized his mother's commitment. The test is complete. The note continued, in careful, precise script. The money was never missing. It was always yours, Arthur. The only condition was that you be willing to do what was necessary. That you be willing to destroy what needed to be destroyed. That you be willing to become what I became. Congratulations. You have inherited the Blackwood legacy. Below that, an account number, a routing number, a figure with 12 digits, more money than Arthur had ever imagined existed. The final line, the choice is yours now. You can turn this into the police, or you can accept what you are. Arthur closed the ledger. He looked in the rearview mirror. His own eyes looked back at him. Cold, calculating. The same eyes he had seen in photographs of his father taken 30 years ago. The same eyes that had watched him with such certainty, such understanding of who Arthur really was. The same eyes, finally, seeing his own face and recognizing it as a mirror. Arthur put the car in gear. He drove away from the police station. He drove away from the burning house. He drove toward the highway, toward the edge of the city, toward a place where the roads no longer had names printed on maps. The ledger sat on the passenger seat. The account number was already memorized. The choice had never really been his at all.